Hi everyone, welcome to the health tip this week. So this week is going to be a little bit of a controversial issue. I'm going to be talking about the flu, and this is kind of the season, so to speak. We're going to call it flu season right now, and people have this concept that there's certain kind of bugs in the air that'll come around and make us sick. But I'm going to give you a different way to look at this because they've been trying to find, they've been doing studies on trying to do contagion for a long time and trying to specifically get people sick with each other, and it's very hard to do. So there's a different way to look at how people and why people get sick, and I'm going to explain it. So a lot of it is in an internal mechanism. It's not things from the outside coming to attack us, because just using a little bit of common sense. Does it make sense that the flu bugs are maybe down in the southern hemisphere and then they all just randomly come up to the northern hemisphere and attack us right around, October, November time for some reason, and then they disappear again? Why aren't they here all year? That kind of thing. So you have to think about why it's a seasonal thing. So we like to look to nature for some examples, and I'm going to give you an example of what's happening outside right now. So if you look at our trees, okay, so you have the tree and it's got nice green foliage all over it. And that would look like a nice healthy tree, and the tree's taking up our carbon dioxide and putting oxygen in the atmosphere, and there's a nice exchange and everything else. But if you look at a lot of trees right now, what are you going to see? They all look sick. They've all lost their leaves. They're just like branches there, and there's no green foliage, and how are they going to survive? So what's happening? All of the leaves are coming off the trees, and it looks like, oh, are the trees getting sick? If you didn't know and you looked around, you would say, oh, that tree's giving it to the next tree. Look, those trees are giving each other this sickness. They're all starting to lose their leaves one after the other. It must be something that's spreading between them. But that's not what's happening. So because it's just a seasonal change where the leaves over time, over the year, they have these little stoma, these little things where they have their gas exchange. And what they need to do is just kind of clean off all those leaves, because they've been getting accumulated like with environmental toxins and stuff in the air, and they just kind of get gummed up over time, and they need to be changed. So the tree just naturally gets rid of those leaves, and it'll grow new ones for the next season when the atmospheric conditions are changed, the humidity is different, and it's summertime again, or spring to summer. That's where there's more exchange, and that's when the new leaves are coming out. With the sunshine, there's more sunshine for the chlorophyll to work, and etc. So I want you to think about this. I want you to think about these cubes here to represent cells that line our respiratory tract. Think of these like Jello cubes, because our cells are actually kind of a lot like a Jello. The water inside our cells are structured, we say. So there's some protein, and the water has a specific configuration that maintains it sort of like a jelly. So our cells, when you break them open, there's not water spilling out all over the place. They actually maintain like a consistency to them. So think about the cells in your body like cubes of Jello that are all kind of stacked together, and they make like the lining. So over the course of the year, pollutants in the environment, heavy metals and all that stuff are starting to get inside our Jello cubes right here. So you got like plastics, and they say that, I don't remember what the number is, but a credit card worth of plastic gets into our body over the course of a few months from all the stuff that we're eating, and all the wrappers and all those kind of things, and plastics that we're drinking from, etc. So all that stuff, we need to get that out of our body, which is going to continually gum us up. So your cells lining your respiratory system are probably all gummed up like this with a lot of toxins and things inside them. So think about, when you make Jello, and sometimes you put like fruit in it, there's all these pieces of pineapple and cherries and all this. So think about those things like a bunch of toxins. So how are you going to get rid of these toxins? What do you have to do to the Jello to get that stuff out? What would you have to do? You'd actually have to heat up the Jello to make the proteins, we call them denature. And then what happens is the proteins sort of unwind, and then the water itself loses that holding structure, and it becomes fluid. So when you heat up Jello, they melt, and all that stuff can get eliminated. So what does your body do? Gives you a fever. Your body temperature rises, the cells get hot, they actually destructure the water. So the cells that line your respiratory tract actually slough off, we call it, and then it starts coming out your nose, and you start coughing it up, and you blow your nose and all that stuff. So you're actually replacing that whole respiratory lining with a whole new batch of cells, which will be more adapt to what the environment is in the wintertime. Different humidity, different, sunshine, all that kind of stuff, different, gases exchange and those kind of things. It's all different, so we need a new set of cells that are nice and clean to establish that. Ah, but you might say, my buddy George, he never gets sick. He goes through every season and he's never had a cold or a flu his whole life. Okay, well, this is your buddy George. It's an evergreen tree, right? Those trees don't lose their leaves. So certain people, for different conditions, maybe their body has naturally good detoxification pathways that they never accumulate so much that the body has to do a big dramatic cleanup. And maybe they're pooping, they're peeing regularly, and maybe they just have like a little sniffles every so often, that maybe they have postnasal drip, or maybe they're always kind of swallowing, they do that every so often, and that's just enough that they're just lightly exchanging the system, and it's enough for their body to get rid of the toxins, and they don't have to do the big dramatic thing, right? So that's what I want you to consider a little bit. Don't think about it as you're getting something. Just think of your body going through something. And this is a natural process. Some people it hits more than others. Of course, when you're going through this process, it takes a lot of energy to do this, right? To heat up your body, make the cells all go and put new cells, that takes a lot of energy. So naturally you're going to feel tired, you're going to feel like you don't want to move around, you got to lay down in bed, your body might be achy everywhere because you're going through this process of change. So don't think about being sick, just think about your just going through losing your leaves and getting ready for a different season. So that's your flu season for you, okay? So that's your health tip for this week. Hopefully that concept was an interesting thing to think about, and we'll see you next time.